So, what's interesting about simaruba for us is that simaruba is not something that is a new discovery. That it's been known from ancient times that simaruba is one plant which was called the bitter wood that has known to be having some anti-cancer properties. There were various publications that have spoken about it, talking about the biological potential of it. We call it bitter wood. My interest in this area grew about almost about a decade back, and those were the days of my initial discoveries, reading about simaruba, and also meeting with a few patients who were trying to use these herbs dispensed by various physicians randomly, to say that you could, without any dose calculation, without anything, try simaruba, and maybe in a patient who's terminally ill, a person who's got no other hope, he would just go and try these herbs, grow them in their houses, or try to consume these leaves. And I would say that it was not a magic bullet. Not everybody gets cured of cancer, but however, some of them did get good palliation, and it kind of resonated with the science of what simaruba was talking about. And that sort of drew my interest more into the area of simaruba because of the important chemical elements that are present in simaruba, mainly the quasinoids and a few other alkaloids. So there are 30 genera. That means there are 30 types of simaruba plants. So it's not that easy. And if you look at a plant, each medicinal plant has a root, a stem, a fruit, and the bark of the trees, which variously, and the fruit and the flowers sometimes. Each component of a particular plant has certain amount of these phytochemicals in a very separate proportion in each individual part. So it's not that easy to find the magic bullet and look at the most ideal proportion that would trigger the most ideal optimal anti-cancer activity. So this needed a lot of what I would say the allopathic approach to a phytopharmaceutical and to a plant origin medicine, which we call Ayurveda. Now the problem has been that many of the times this has been empirical, and that's the reason we've not been able to get the necessary success that we wanted to. So it was during this particular journey that I started doing more and more research to look at active ingredients. And my co-inventor and colleague Dr. Ganesh, who's a specialist in organic chemistry, he's a PhD, told me a very interesting fact. He said, Vishal, look, it's very important for us to understand that active ingredients not always work. While the pharma industry always searches for one active ingredient, because that's way you can patent it, that way you can actually make it into a synthetic molecule, you can mass manufacture it. The plant-based approach is sometimes a more cumbersome approach. And he said, give a classical example of turmeric, and said turmeric as a whole has a lot of great properties, but when you extract curcumin out of it, which is a small proportion of the entire turmeric, its efficiency drastically reduces. And till today there has not been any game changer cure that has been possible in the area of cancer with curcumin, while the literature is galore with data that talks about the potential of curcumin. And I think it was the cue for us to say that sometimes it's not always about the active ingredient, it's about the combination of some of these molecules in their natural form that bring about the most optimal anti-cancer effects. And that's how began my journey into the simaruba research. Incidentally, during this time I've also heard a lot about Dr. and his wife very actively propagating simaruba, and he was one of the very active proponents about this in Karnataka, who used to claim very strong effects of simaruba, who would give free of these seeds with good intent for patients to say that grow it on your own and consume it on your own. He at that time, I think, was not able to pursue the aspect of looking at the aspects of following the steps, which is the preclinical research, the clinical cell line research, and the proper aspect of what today the regulatory mechanisms of any Food and Drug Authority requires. But the science he knew and believed in was a science that is ancient, that I think had a lot of respect in it, And today it was our intent to revive this science to give it to the world. And that's how the entire thing of simaruba was born, with some basic theories which we initially published in some of our index journals, talking about how this particular phyto agent using the quasinoids, and our initial temptation was, let's extract the quasinoids, let's isolate them and just see can we make a medicine out of it. But I think what we found in our initial cell line studies and in our preclinical studies was, as a whole together, it was more effective than as an isolated ingredient. With this, we also looked at, there are several techniques in Ayurveda where you are able to detoxify these particular herbs and bring about some amount of therapeutic efficiency. So we brought in another composition of multiple other quasinoids and other diterpenoids, 6 other herbs which would combat, for example, vomiting. It would increase appetite, it would improve the secretory juices, it would activate the immune system and the lymphocytes. At the same time, it would block the glucose metabolism. So in this entire combination, simaruba was born, and the science of it was born out of the, I would say, the ancient Indian science, giving it the modern touch of the allopathic medicine, and that's how it fits into the category of what we call the allophytoherbals.